I'm Margaret Ellis, 55 years old, a woman who has spent her life conquering the tech industry in Portland, Oregon. Born in a small town in Ohio, I grew up with sunny summer days, fiddling with my dad's old computer, dreaming of creating something that would change the world. From a clumsy girl with her first lines of code, I became the team leader of software development at Horizon Innovations, a company that provides digital solutions for small businesses. For 20 years, I not only wrote code, but built trust with colleagues, with clients, with myself. My office, located on the 15th floor of a high-rise in downtown Portland, was where that journey was stored. On my desk, I kept a photo of myself with the team at a tech conference in San Francisco, the Employee of the Year award gleaming in its frame, and a small cactus my daughter Sophie gave me when I celebrated my 15th work anniversary. I loved this job not only because it supported my family, but because it made me feel valuable, like an irreplaceable piece of the puzzle. On the morning of April 15, 2025, I was preparing for a major presentation. Spring sunlight streamed through the window. Reflecting on my laptop where I was finalizing the last slides, I smiled, thinking of Sophie, who was studying in Boston, and how she always called me a hero. Then my phone vibrated. An email. I glanced at it, thinking it was just a usual update, but the subject line made my heart stop. Margaret Ellis's role at Horizon. I clicked, and the words were like a cold blade slicing through me. After careful consideration, your position is no longer necessary for our new strategy. Your contract is terminated immediately. Your contributions, while appreciated, have become outdated in an era that demands flexibility and youthful thinking. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Signed, Richard Hargrove, CEO. But that wasn't the worst part. Attached was a company-wide announcement, and it felt like fuel on the fire that was burning inside me. To ensure Horizon Innovations leads the industry, we are restructuring, prioritizing young creative teams ready to shape the future. Margaret Ellis, along with a few others, no longer aligns with this vision. Their contributions belong to the past, and we need those who can move faster. Think bolder. Outdated. Unfit. The past. Those words were like knife wounds, written with Richard's cold arrogance, as though I were a piece of old furniture tossed into the trash. My heart pounded as though it would burst from my chest, but my hands trembled as I scrolled to the bottom of the email. He had sent it to everyone from interns to partners, like a public declaration of war. I wanted to storm into his office, scream that he was wrong, that I had dedicated my life to this company. But I didn't move. I closed my laptop, put on my coat, and walked out, the sound of my high heels echoing on the wood floor like a countdown of my self-respect. In the elevator, my colleagues looked at me, then quickly turned away, their pitying glances like salt in the wound. Outside on the streets of Portland, light rain was falling, and I stood there feeling 20 years of work vanish with a single click. My phone buzzed repeatedly, messages from colleagues, some comforting, others curious. I didn't reply. I drove home, the wipers sweeping through the rain, and sat in the garage, gripping the steering wheel, until my knuckles were white. Had I been blind, letting him turn me into a joke before the world? 20 years of dedication, sleepless nights, finishing projects, times when I put the company before my family, all now summed up in the word outdated. How would I face Sophie with her proud gaze when the entire industry called me a failure? But in the dark, I felt a small flame, quiet but determined, whispering that Richard was wrong. He thought I would crumble, disappear like a shadow. But I'm Margaret Ellis, who built a career from the ground up, and I won't let him define me. I will build something that makes him swallow every word, not with hatred, but with the power of my own strength. The days following that email, I felt like I was walking into another world where everything was painfully sharp. I used to think Richard was a tough but fair boss, the kind of leader who pushed you to exceed your limits. He always appeared in a perfectly tailored suit with a confident smile, and his voice booming as if every idea were his own. But now I look back and see the cracks I had overlooked. The times he lingered by the desks of younger employees, laughing at lame jokes while I kept my eyes on the screen, finishing reports he would later take credit for. The times he interrupted me in meetings, waving his hand as if dismissing an opinion that wasn't worth hearing. And once at the company Christmas party, he sipped his drink, looked at me through the dim lights, and said, "Margaret, you're the solid foundation of our company, but you must admit that foundations just stay on the ground, never reaching the sky. This era needs wings, bold thinkers who aren't shackled by outdated ways. Do you understand what I mean?" I laughed, thinking he was joking. But it wasn't a joke. It was a warning, and I was blind to it. I began digging, not out of spite, but to understand. My home office became a battlefield with my laptop open through the night, notebooks scattered everywhere, and cups of cold coffee piling up. I went through old emails looking for signs. There was a project I led last year, a cost management software that saved clients millions. Richard stood on stage at a conference receiving applause, while I sat in the audience smiling, thinking it was a shared success. There were performance reviews, always excellent, but repeated one line: "Margaret needs to innovate to keep up with the times innovate." I now understood that was his code for youth, for the new faces he wanted to replace me with. I found a folder on the company server where I still had access. A few days after being fired, it was like a goldmine. Internal memos about streamlining the team, with my name marked in red next to the word redundant. That word was a punch to the gut, but I didn't fall, I acted. I opened a new bank account, one that Richard's team couldn't trace. I kept track of everything from screenshots to emails, even recording my thoughts at midnight when the anger kept me awake. One night I found a draft email Richard had accidentally sent me 6 months ago. It was sent to a competitor, hinting at a merger with the line, "We need to clean up burdens like Ellis to make the profile look good." Burden. That was me after 20 years of dedication. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was a carefully calculated plan, probably started when I still trusted him. He thought he could erase me, make me a fading memory in his journey to power. But I'm not a burden. I'm a mountain, the strength that has kept this company standing through countless storms. The systems I built, the clients I convinced, the nights I stayed up to perfect every detail. These are proof of my worth. He was wrong, and I will make him pay, not with blind rage, but by building an empire that will force him to bow to the truth. I am unbeatable. The weeks that followed felt like walking on a tightrope. I had savings, but they weren't infinite, and the bills didn't wait for my self-esteem to recover. I woke up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, calculating how long I could hold on without a paycheck. The rumor mill spread quickly through Portland's tech community. By the second week, I received emails from old clients, some pitying me, others implying that Richard had called me hard to work with a fired employee who couldn't keep up. Hard to work with, because I did my job well. That injustice burned like fire inside me. But I didn't have time to wallow in sorrow. I needed a plan, and I needed someone to fight alongside me. That's when I met Carla. She had been a colleague at Horizon, leaving a year earlier because she was fed up with Richard's male-dominated culture. We ran into each other at a cafe in the Pearl District, where the exposed brick walls and the baristas remembered your name. Carla looked different, freer, with eyes bright, like someone who had found purpose. Over a latte, she told me about her growing consulting firm. "Margaret, I know what you've been through with Richard, and I want you to hear this. He's an evil man, a snake in human form. But you are the most talented woman I've ever worked with. He thought he could extinguish your light, but I see the fire in you still burning stronger than ever. You don't need Horizon. You don't need his approval. You can build something greater, something that will make this industry stand in awe, and I want to stand by you to help you make that dream come true. Are you ready?" Her words were a breath of fresh air, not just because of the flattery, but because they reminded me of who I was, the woman who had overcome so much to stand strong. Carla didn't just console me. She offered a partnership. Her company needed someone like me, someone who knew how to talk to clients, not just write code. I hesitated, not because I doubted her, but because starting over felt like admitting failure. But then I remembered Richard's email. His words like outdated, unfit, like knives he had thrust into my pride. I stood in front of the mirror, looked into my eyes, and saw a woman who had fought her entire life to prove her worth. Richard thought I was done, that I would bow my head and disappear. But I am Margaret Ellis, the woman who raised a strong daughter, the one who built a career when no one believed I could. I don't need him. I don't need Horizon to define me. I will start over, not for revenge, but to live true to who I am, to show Sophie that her mom never gives up, to show the world that I am invincible. I shook Carla's hand and we started. We set up shop in her small office, an old loft with creaky wooden floors and a view of the Willamette River. It wasn't Horizon's glass tower, but it was real, like a place where dreams could take root. We started from scratch, reaching out to my old clients, people I had built relationships with over decades. A chain of bakeries signed on within days, impressed by our idea for a custom inventory management app. Not much yet, but it was a start. Every night, I sat at the table refining the business plan, hands steady even though fear gnawed at me. What if I failed? What if Richard was right? But I thought of Sophie, of Carla's faith, of the life I still wanted to build. I kept going. And then something clicked, something that turned our small startup into a weapon. One Thursday, as the rain drummed on the attic window, I received an email that would change everything. A client, one of Horizon's largest partners, forwarded me a leaked document. They didn't say how they got it, just wrote, "Margaret, you need to see this." I opened it and my breath caught in my throat. It was Richard's proposal to sell Horizon's core software to a competitor for a price so low it betrayed our own clients. The staggering numbers, millions in profit, all at the expense of the small businesses that had trusted Horizon for decades. Worse still, there were notes about laying off key staff to cut costs. My name was there, circled in red with one word: useless. That word hit me like a slap, but it wasn't what made me tremble. It was the scale of the conspiracy, the audacity of Richard thinking he could outsmart everyone. I called Carla, my voice trembling not from fear, but from something sharper, like the knife I wanted to use to cut through his mask. We read the document together, line by line, and realized the truth. Richard wasn't just cruel, he was reckless. He was betting Horizon's future on a shady deal, thinking no one would notice. But I did. And I wasn't alone. Carla had connections, people who had left Horizon, but still had ears inside. We pieced together the information Richard's merger was collapsing, and he was scrambling to cover it up. His energetic team was just a smokescreen for his desperation. Carla looked at me, her eyes burning bright, and said, "Margaret, this isn't just an opportunity for revenge. This is our moment to reshape the game. We can build something great, a company that not only surpasses Horizon, but forces the entire industry to look at us with respect." He thought he had snuffed out your fire, but I see the flame in you, and it will burn his arrogance to the ground. Are you ready to make this real, to show the world how wrong he was? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from my laptop, and the sound of rain outside. He called me useless, as if I were a broken thing to be tossed aside and forgotten. But I'm the one who built systems that made clients loyal for years, the one who led teams through challenges that seemed impossible. I am not the residue of the past. I am the fire of the future, and I will show him that his arrogance was the biggest mistake of his life. I will build an empire, not to destroy him, but to prove that I, Margaret Ellis, am an unstoppable force, a mountain that cannot be shaken. I wrote this letter every word, like a bullet, not out of hatred, but because I know my worth, and I will make the world know it too. I wrote an anonymous letter to the Horizon Board, detailed and exposing Richard's conspiracy. I attached the leaked document, each accusation like a bullet. Carla hesitated, worried it might backfire. I looked at her, my eyes glued to the screen, and said, "He wants to play a power game, wants to make me a joke in front of the whole industry. I'll show him what real power is, not cruelty, but truth. The power of a woman who knows who she is and never bows down." We sent the letter, then waited. I didn't know if it would work, but I felt alive, like I was finally holding the reins. What happened next wasn't just a victory, it was a reckoning. The board meeting took place on Friday, and the Portland tech scene was buzzing like never before. Carla and I weren't invited, but we had our sources, people who had worked under Richard and now stood with us. By noon, my phone was lighting up with messages. The board had grilled Richard for hours, his smooth charm dissolving under the weight of the leaked documents. He tried to cover up, blaming disgruntled former employees, hinting at me with venomous tone. But the evidence was too clear, and the board wasn't fooled. By 3 p.m., the official announcement came. Richard Hargrove resigned to pursue new opportunities. I read the statement on my laptop, the words blurring as I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in months. But I didn't stop there. Carla and I seized the chaos, with Richard gone. Horizon was reeling, clients fleeing like birds leaving a nest. We were ready. Our startup, Ellis & Co., pitched to every big client, abandoned by Horizon. We didn't just sell software. We sold trust, something I'd built over decades. By the end of the month, we signed 3 more clients, including a regional bank that had been Horizon's cash cow. Our attic office was packed, and we hired 2 more programmers, both former Horizon employees, streamlined just like me. The day we signed the bank, I stood in the office looking out over the Willamette River, gleaming in the afternoon sun, and said to myself, he thought I couldn't, that I would crumble under his insults, that I would vanish into the darkness like a failure. But look at me. I'm standing here, building something greater than anything he ever dreamed of. I'm not just surviving, I'm shaping the future. And he's just a faded name in the past, a ghost with no power to touch me. Every contract we sign, every client we win, is proof that I'm not outdated, but an eternal flame. Carla walked in, handed me a cup of coffee, and said, "Margaret, do you see the miracle we've created? We haven't just won, we're rewriting the rules of the game, and you're leading the charge. The flag bearer inspiring all of us. I'm proud to stand by you, to witness you turn pain into strength, betrayal into a legacy that will live on." I smiled, but the real victory wasn't the contracts or the headlines. It was the feeling of freedom, the feeling that I had reclaimed myself. I thought about Sophie, how she would look at me when she knew her mother had fought and won. I thought about the team, the ones who were called useless like me, and how we were proving them wrong. But the journey wasn't over. Something deeper was waiting, something that would change me forever. Victory is a wonderful feeling, but it cannot erase the deep scars in my heart. There are nights when I lie awake, hearing Richard's words echoing in my mind. Words like useless, outdated, like needles piercing my self-esteem. I built a company, yes, but I am still a person with wounds that are not easily healed. I know I need to heal, not just fight to prove myself. I started with the small things, slow steps to find myself again. Every morning I walk along the Willamette River, letting the sound of the flowing water soothe the waves in my mind. I bought a notebook, writing in it every emotion, from the burning anger to the chilling fear, from the silent pride to the moments when I doubted myself. One line I wrote on a drizzly night has stayed with me. He thought he destroyed me, that his cruel words would drown me in darkness, would make me believe I was worthless. But he was wrong, horribly wrong. I am not what he said, not the remnants of the past, or a burden to be cleaned up. I am the one who rose from the ashes, rebuilt my life with trembling hands, but never stopped. I am no longer Margaret of the past, the one who sought approval from others. I am stronger, gentler, and I am learning to love myself, not for the victories I've achieved, but because I survived, weathered the storm, and still stand firm. I decided to try therapy, something I once thought was for others, not for me. My therapist, an older woman with kind eyes and a knack for asking tough questions, helped me see the truth. Richard's cruelty was not because of my shortcomings, but because of his own insecurities, the failures he couldn't face. Through each session, I began to forgive myself for not realizing sooner, for being loyal too long to someone who didn't deserve it. One weekend, I drove to Cannon Beach, where the waves crash powerfully, and Haystack Rock stands tall in the mist. I stood on the cold sand, inhaling the salty sea air, and tossed a stone into the waves. I whispered to myself, my voice small but firm. I let go, Margaret, not of the fire inside me, not of the strength that brought me here, but of the weight of this pain. I no longer need to carry Richard's scars, no longer let his words define me. I deserve to be free to live with joy, to be loved for who I am, not for what I achieve. I am enough, and I will live true to that. When I returned to Portland, I felt relieved, as if a part of my soul had been set free. Carla immediately noticed the change. One morning, when handing me a hot cup of coffee, she smiled and said, "Margaret, you shine like the sun. Not because of deals or fame, but because you've found yourself again, the woman stronger than I ever imagined. I'm proud to be your friend, to witness you step out of the darkness, face your deepest wounds, and still choose to rise to love, to live with all your heart." I smiled, feeling the truth in her words. I am healing, and not just for myself. I want Sophie, my daughter, to see that her mom can fall and rise again stronger than ever. I want my team to know that they are not what others say, that they are valuable, strong. And I want every client to believe that Ellis & Co. is not just a company, but a promise, a commitment to people to trust to what is right. But the real challenge is coming, and it's nothing like anything I've ever imagined. The lawsuit came like a lightning strike. Horizon, under new leadership, attempted to counterattack, accusing me of stealing trade secrets. A desperate attempt to save face, but serious. The courtroom was cold, all wood and whispers, but I felt like I was stepping onto a battlefield. I sat there, my lawyer beside me, watching the Horizon team struggle to present their case. They had no evidence, just Richard's old tactics, smearing and covering up. My lawyer, Lena, a sharp woman, stood before the court and said, "Your Honor, this is not a case about intellectual property, but a cowardly attempt at revenge, a scheme to silence a woman who dared to stand up against injustice. Margaret Ellis did not steal anything. She built a company from the ground up with talent, determination, and dedication that Horizon never deserved. They cannot stand the fact that she succeeded without them, and they want to use the court to make up for their own failure. But the truth cannot be twisted, and we are here to defend it." The judge, a woman with sharp eyes, was not impressed with Horizon's theatrics. "This case reeks of revenge," she said, her voice dry as she flipped through the documents. I caught the eye of Horizon's new CEO, a man nervously inheriting Richard's mess. He looked away when the verdict came, dismissing the case with Horizon ordered to pay legal fees. I didn't cheer. I just nodded my hand, steady on the table. Lena squeezed my hand and whispered, "Margaret, you are untouchable. No lawsuit, no insult, no conspiracy can touch you. You've stood strong against the world, and you've won not just for yourself, but for all those who've been pushed aside." I smiled, but I didn't think about the victory. I thought about the people watching my team, my clients, my daughter. They saw me stand tall, and that was enough. Leaving the courthouse, Portland's sky was clear, a rare sight between spring showers. I stood there, took a deep breath, and said to myself, he thought he could bring me down, that a lawsuit would make me tremble, would force me back into the shadow of myself. But here I am, not just surviving, but winning, not just protecting my honor, but building a legacy. I don't need his or Horizon's recognition. I don't need their gaze to know my worth. I have myself, and that is the greatest strength I've ever had. I am free, and I will use this freedom to create a world where no one is called useless. I feel the past fade away, not because I won, but because I fought. I am free. But freedom comes with a question. What will you do with it? I have the answer, and it's bigger than I ever imagined. Ellis & Co. was no longer just a company. It had become a movement, a banner for those who had been pushed to the margins. We grew rapidly, moving to a new office in the Pearl District, with sparkling glass walls and a view of the Portland skyline. Clients no longer just hired us. They trusted us just as they had trusted me during my long years at Horizon. I started to spend time mentoring not just for my own team, but for others, those who had been called too old, too slow, or no longer valuable. I sat with them in the office lounge, sharing life stories over fragrant cups of coffee, watching their eyes light up as they realized that they were not past their prime, that they could still dream big. A new employee, Tom, a 50-year-old programmer with a shy smile, shook my hand after a meeting and said, "Margaret, you gave me a second chance, something I never dared to dream of in my darkest days. I thought my life was over, that the world had no place for someone like me. But you stand here, a woman once called useless, and you built an empire from the ashes. You make me believe that I still have value, that I can create something big, not just for me, but for the next generation, for those who are watching us and looking for hope." I hugged him, my throat tight, and said, "Tom, you are not only valuable, you are part of a bigger dream, a future we are building together. You belong here with all your strength and talent, and I am proud to watch you shine." But not everything was smooth. Some competitors started whispering, calling us a revenge startup, as if our success was just a personal game. A few potential clients hesitated, concerned about our rapid growth. I didn't flinch. I had faced worse insults, deeper looks of pity. Instead of stopping, I pushed harder. We launched a free program building software for local nonprofit organizations, from food banks to youth support centers. We sponsored tech workshops for women over 40, teaching them programming leadership and to dare to dream the dreams they once thought impossible. At one workshop, a single mother named Lisa grabbed my hand, her eyes welling with tears, and said, "Margaret, I once thought I wasn't good enough, not young enough, not strong enough to start over after losing everything. But you stand here, a woman like me, and you built a whole new world from the fragments. You make me believe that I can too, that I can learn, I can rise, I can be a role model for my child, a mother my child can be proud of. You gave me hope, and I will never forget that." I blinked to stop the tears, squeezed her hand, and said, "Lisa, you not only can, you will. And I will be here, along with this whole community, to cheer you on every step of the way, to remind you that you are an unstoppable fire. The turning point came at a tech conference in Seattle, where I was invited to be the keynote speaker. I stood on the stage, the blue light shining down, 500 faces looking up at me. I told my story, not just about the victories, but also the doubts, the sleepless nights, the moments I almost gave up. When I finished, the entire audience stood up, applause ringing out, and a young woman came up to me, her voice trembling. "I'm 45, and my boss told me I was outdated, that I had no future in this industry. But you, Margaret, you made me believe that I can start over, that I still have value, that I can shine just like you have. You are the light that guides me, and I want to thank you for giving me the courage to dream big." I hugged her, my heart full, and said, "You not only have value, you are a fire, and the world is waiting for you to blaze. Go forward, dream big, and let me be the one to cheer you on in your journey. This is my legacy, not just a company, but a spark, a fire that is spreading everywhere. But there is still one final piece, something I need to share to complete this story." By 2025, Ellis & Co. was no longer just a name in the tech industry. It had become a symbol of resilience, of those pushed to the margins, but refusing to bow down. We had expanded across the West Coast with dozens of major clients and a team of 30 people, more than half of whom were those once considered too old to succeed. I walked into the office every morning, hearing lively chatter, laughter from the meeting rooms, and felt a deep pride that words couldn't describe. Sophie visited me in the summer, her eyes wide as she walked through the glass walls of the new office. "Mom," she said, hugging me tightly, "you've built a whole world not just for you, but for everyone who thought they had no chance. You are my hero, and I want to live like you, with a strong heart, with the belief that nothing is impossible. I'm proud to be your daughter, and I'll tell your story to everyone, so they know that one woman can change the whole world." We started hosting community workshops gatherings where women aged 35 to 65 came together, learning technology, sharing stories, and supporting one another. One evening in a small community center in Portland, I stood before 50 women, their eyes full of hope and fear. I looked at them and said, "Ladies, I was once called useless, told that my time was up, that I had no place in this world. But I stand here today, not because I'm special, but because I refuse to believe that lie. You are the same. You are not the past. You are the future, and together we will build a world where no one is left behind. Stand up, dream big, and let me be the one to remind you that you are flames that cannot be extinguished." A woman. Jane stood up, her voice trembling but resolute. "Margaret, I lost my job last year, and I thought my life was over. But hearing you speak, seeing how you rose from the ashes, I want to try again. I want to learn to prove that I still can, not just for me, but for my daughter, so she knows her mom never gives up. You gave me the courage, and I will carry this fire further." I took her hand, feeling the strength in her palm, and said, "Jane, you not only can, you will. And we, all of us here, will walk that path with you, step by step, to cheer you on as you become the strongest version of yourself." We organized a big event, a tech conference dedicated to women, raising thousands of dollars for organizations supporting STEM education for children and adults. Hundreds attended, from college students to seasoned professionals, and when I stood on stage looking down at the crowd, I knew I wasn't just building a company. I had created a community, a place where people were seen, heard, and valued. A young woman, just 22, came up to me after my speech, her eyes shining. "Ms. Margaret, you are the reason I want to pursue a career in tech. I want to be like you, not only smart, but strong, inspiring those around me. You showed me that one woman can change the world, and I want to carry your fire forward." I smiled, placing my hand on her shoulder. You don't need to be me. You will become you, and that is the strongest thing you can do. Dream big, shine bright, and let me be the one to cheer you on in your journey. My journey is not over, but there is one final thing I need to share, something that will complete this story and leave an everlasting mark. I sat in my office looking out at the city lights, twinkling outside the window, like stars falling down onto Portland. In 2025, Ellis & Co. is not just a tech company. It is a symbol of resilience, of those who were pushed to the margins but refused to bow down, refused to let the world define them. I think of Richard, who is now just a faint name consulting somewhere in California, his reputation shattered like sand slipping through his fingers. I don't gloat. I don't need to. His downfall is not my victory. My victory is what I have built, from the ashes of betrayal, from the insults that once made me doubt myself. I remember that email. Words like outdated, useless, inappropriate like bullets fired to destroy me. But they didn't. They only made me stronger, made me realize that my worth is not in what others say, but in what I choose to do, in what I choose to believe. Sophie called me last week, her voice full of pride. Mom, I told my friends about you, about how you were pushed to the margins, but got back up, built an empire from scratch. You are my hero, and I want to live like you, with a strong heart, believing that nothing is impossible, with the courage to face the world and say, I am enough. I am proud to be your daughter, and I will carry your story everywhere, so that people know that a woman can change the world. I smiled through the phone, tears streaming down my cheeks, and said, Sophie, you are already a hero because you believe in yourself, because you dare to dream big, and I will always be here, reminding you that no one can take away your light. Shine, my love, and let me be the one cheering you on every step of the way. If you're hearing this story, I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart. Perhaps you've been in my shoes once, called not good enough, not young enough, not strong enough. Perhaps you've stood in the dark, wondering if you still have value, if there's still a place for you in the world. I am here to tell you that you are not what they say. You are a flame, a force, a story waiting to be written. You don't need their recognition to shine. You don't need their permission to dream big. Look at me, a 55-year-old woman, once called useless, once pushed out of the world she helped build. I stand here today, leading a company, a community, a movement, not because I am special, but because I refuse to give up. If I can do it, so can you. I want to end this story not with a victory, but with a call, a whisper from my heart to yours. What will you do with your flame? Will you let it be extinguished? Let the cruel words, the contemptuous looks drown you? Or will you let it blaze, light up the world, turn pain into power, turn doubt into drive? I can't wait to see your story, to see you rise, dream big, and live true to who you are. Start from where you stand, with what you have. Build something not to prove them wrong, but to prove you are right. Because trust me, the greatest thing of yours is still ahead. Stand up, shine, and let the world see that you are a flame that cannot be put out.